My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there. Thank you. People in the Democratic Party and the people in the United States want to change. The country wants to move in a different direction. We want to deal with our own problems within our own country, and we want peace in Vietnam. So, my thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there. Thank you.
You know, when the Senate presiding officer is called the President, when somebody says, Mr. President, 100 pairs of eyes look up. I don't know. I suppose that everybody in politics, and you're up in front of crowds, and then you, to some extent, you begin to think that what you say is important and significant. And because clap at the beginning, when you stand up, people clap at the beginning, they clap at the end. I think it's at times frustrating, the fact that you can't get more done, and you find there are matters that really require immediate attention, emergency matters, and that you feel strongly that the country or an area of the country would be better off, or a group of people or part of our day would have better lives if we took a particular course of action, and to see it go on day after day, and that's frustrating. If you're in the executive branch of the government, or a governor, I expect, or the executive branch of the government here in Washington, it's much more possible to take an action and see some results from it immediately. That's not possible in the United States Senate, so I think that part of it is frustrating.
What I think is quite clear is that we can work together in the last analysis, and that what has been going on within the United States over the period of the last 3 years, the divisions, the violence, the disenchantment with our society, the divisions, whether it's between blacks and whites, between the poor and the more affluent, or between age groups, or in the war in Vietnam, that we can start to work together. We are a great country, and a selfish country, and a compassionate country. And I intend to make that my basis for running and over the period of the next few months.
Robert Frost, who read from his poetry at the inauguration of our president, once wrote these lines: "Before I build a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. What wants this wall down is the whole free spirit of man." The statistics on the flight of scholars offers us an idea of what communism has done to this free spirit. Since 1958, a total of 1,606 scholars, mainly teachers in the humanities and sciences, at long-established universities and technical institutes in East Germany, have left the Eastern Zone and registered in West German reception camps. More than half are members of faculties. 118 of them are full-fledged professors, a number equal to the professional component of East Germany's third largest university at Halle. In the last 4 years, Halle has lost a total of 147 faculty members, more than the current size of its teaching staff. Humboldt University has lost 275 members of its staff, and Leipzig 199, and so on down the list. As the chief law officer of the American government, I am particularly interested to note, too, the flight of many judges and lawyers from East Germany. The wall is more than a demonstration of communist failure in the struggle for men's faith and hope. It is equally a desperate effort to stem the tide of unification in democratic Europe. By attempting to isolate West Berlin, the communists hope to subtract West Berlin from West Germany, and then to separate West Germany from Western Europe. And by subtracting West Germany from Western Europe, they hope to defeat and wreck the great cooperative instrumentalities of the regathering of democratic strength, the common market, the OECD, and NATO. I well know that for those in Free Berlin, the persistent communist pressure has been a source of peril and anguish. Yet what has happened in Berlin is that the Soviet Union has reacted to the initiatives of democracy, to you and to your spirit, and to that series of actions, beginning with the Marshall Plan, which have brought about the extraordinary political, economic, and cultural renaissance of Western Europe. The post-war revival of democratic Europe has exerted a magnetic attraction on communist Europe. On the dark side of the Iron Curtain, despite rigid communist controls, democratic ideas Democratic techniques, democratic fashions, and democratic ideals are stirring. Among its own intellectuals and its own youth, communism finds itself on the defensive. The flow of influence is now always from west to east, not from east to west. From democracy to communism, not from communism to democracy. My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there. This is the true path toward lower tensions and lessened dangers. We shall continue to hope that as policies of repression fail and as fears of revenge prove unfounded, the Soviet government, in its own true interest, will come to share this purpose and to cooperate in its realization. But freedom by itself is not enough. Freedom is a good horse, said Matthew Arnold, but a horse to ride somewhere. Ernst Reuter knew that what mattered finally was the use to which man put freedom. That what counts is how liberty becomes the means of opportunity, growth, and justice. We do not stand here at Berlin just because we are against communism. We stand here because we have a positive and progressive vision of the possibilities of a free society. Because we see in freedom the instrumentality of social progress and social justice. Because communism itself is but the symptom and the consequences of the fundamental evils: ignorance, disease, hunger, and want, and freedom has shown mankind the most effective way to destroy these ancient antagonists. The free way of life proposes ends, but it does not prescribe means. It assumes that peoples and nations will often think differently, have the full right to do so, and that diversity is the source of progress. It believes that men advance by discussion, by debate, by trial, and by error. It believes that the best ideas come not from edict and ideology, but from free inquiry and from free experiment, and it regards dissent not as treason to the state, but as a tested mechanism of social progress. It knows that diverse nations will find diverse roads to the general goal of political independence and economic growth. It regards the free individual as the source of creativity and believes that it is the role of the state to serve him and not his role to serve the state. I come to Berlin from thousands of miles of travel through Asia. I have seen men and women at work building modern societies so that their people can begin to share in the blessings of science and technology and become full members of the 20th century. Social progress and social justice, in my judgment, are not something apart from freedom. They are the fulfillment of freedom. The obligations of free men is to use their opportunities to improve the welfare of their fellow human beings. This, at least, has been the tradition of democratic freedom in America. And this is what lies behind the great democratic effort underway in the United States now, known as the New Frontier.
There are some that perhaps that my respect for is less, but as a body and as a group of individuals, I think very, very highly of them. If you compare them to any other group of individuals, profession across the United States, I think they match or are superior to any other group in the country.
I run for the presidency because I want the Democratic Party and the United States of America to stand for hope instead of despair, for reconciliation of men instead of the growing risk of world war. I run because it is now unmistakably clear that we can change these disastrous, divisive policies only by changing the men who are now making them. I cannot stand aside from the contest that will decide our nation's future and our children's future. The remarkable New Hampshire campaign of Senator Eugene McCarthy has proven how deep are the present divisions within our party and within our country. Until that was publicly clear, my presence in the race would have been seen as a clash of personalities rather than issues. But now that that fight is won, and over policies which I have long been challenging, I must enter that race. The fight is just beginning, and I believe that I can win. I do not lightly dismiss the dangers and the difficulties of challenging an incumbent president. But these are not ordinary times, and this is not an ordinary election. At stake is not simply the leadership of our party and even our country. It is our right to the moral leadership of this planet.
I can assure you that the wall will fail as spectacularly in this purpose as it has failed to seal off communist Europe from the magnetic attraction of democratic Europe. Ernst Reuter said a dozen years ago, here in Berlin, all the slogans that rend the air during the East-West struggle take on a real meaning. Here no one needs any professional lectures about democracy, about freedom and all the nice things that there are in the world. Here one has lived all of that. One lives it every day and every hour. You live it still in free Berlin, and the ever-increasing strength and purpose and unity of the democracies will vindicate your struggle. And while today Berlin is divided, as Germany is divided, by the decision of the communists, you know and I know that in the end, all Berlin and all Germany are one. My country shares with you the peaceful but persistent purpose that Germans shall one day find themselves reunited. I have some very sad news for all of you. Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight in Memphis. We are supporting Vietnam militarily. Our casualties are higher than the Vietnamese people at the moment. We are supporting them financially, and I think that it should be made clear from the top level of government in every way possible that our commitment, our moral position in Vietnam is badly undermined if there are not free elections, and if the power and prestige of the United States is being utilized just to continue a few people in power. Surely is the meaning of the Berlin Wall, that ugly mass of concrete, brick, and barbed wire which lies across the heart of your city like a medieval instrument of torture. For the people of Berlin, the erection of that wall was, of course, an affront and a source of anguish. But I can report to you from around the world, from my travels through Asia, that the Berlin Wall is regarded everywhere as a proof of communist bankruptcy and a symbol of communist failure. Herr Ulbricht himself has confessed that it was to stop the flight of people, to lock up his workers in the workers' paradise, that the wall was built. For the first time in the history of mankind, a political system has had to construct a barrier to keep its people in, and the whole world recognizes the desperate meaning of this act. They wall their people in, we set our people free. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another, and a feeling of justice toward those who still suffer within our country. There is mounting and distressing evidence of efforts to interfere with the free choice of the people. Candidates have been barred because their views were unacceptable, even though they are loyal citizens. Jails still contain prisoners whose only offense is opposition to the present government. The right of candidates to debate the issues is restricted in the press. Their ability to campaign is hampered by harassment.
I do not run for the presidency merely to oppose any man, but to propose new policies.
The inadequacy of human compassion, the defectiveness of our sensibility toward the sufferings of our fellows, they mark the limit of our ability to use knowledge for the well-being of our fellow human beings throughout the world. One committed to participating in public life can sit on the sidelines with so much at stake.
I'm saying that. I think that if the events follow the course that they've taken over a period of the last 6 weeks, if the events follow that course over the period of the next 3 weeks, I don't think that we can claim that there have been free elections in South Vietnam.